What is up, everyone? You know what time it is. It is Tuesday night. It is time to hang out with the best Arizona Cardinals community on the interwebs, the TCR family. If you aren't part of the Discord, join. There's a link below. A lot of great folks in there. And I'm, of course, joined by two of my favorite 17 Cardinals fans, I'd say. I mean, at least, right?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, right. It checks out, right? Kyler Burd and Mr. Aarron Van Buren. Aarron, we missed you last week, buddy. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Just started a new job. Moved to Michigan. Getting used to the dreaded Eastern time. And just going nonstop. And it's where I've wanted to be. So you gotta take what comes with the territory. So happy to be here and happy to get back on one of these.
Well, we're glad to have you back, man. I know there's a lot going on, so we appreciate that you made time to hang out with us. I know there's a million things going on in your world right now, so that does not go unnoticed. So thank you for hanging out with us. Kyler, how are you, sir?
Doing good. I'm much better now that Aaron's back with us.
Right.
It just fills my heart. But busy week, first week of classes at the university that I work at. Busy time, a lot of frantic students running around. So
we're all in education, aren't we?
Yeah, we are in education now. Yeah, so we all have students to talk and complain about. But I'm good. We obviously have a lot to talk about. Big day, biggest day until the season starts, really. So
yeah, there's a lot going on. Obviously, today was the day to make the cuts down to the initial 53-man roster. There's a lot to talk about with that. And then, there was a trade in the middle of all that.
Yeah. And
then maybe where do they go from here, right? So real quick, let's say hey to the folks in the chat. We got some good folks who joined us today. Let's go. So, AZ, thanks for being here. We appreciate you. We got D-Lo. I've got it right now, pronounced right. Thank you for hanging out. We've got Kiri Taylor. I apologize if I have mispronounced your name, Kiri. Or Kira, maybe? Or Kiri, I'm not sure. Arizona Cardinals all day. That's right. We got Brian, Eluan5. Absolutely the best day of the week in session. Please be sure to our pleasure to be. I can't even talk. I'm not feeling well, so my brain is I'm on allergy meds there. Absolutely the best day of the week in session. Pleasure to be in the presence of Content King Joe and his amazing crew. Let's go, Kyler. You the man, bro. And of course, Aarron. Good to see you, my man.
Thank
he
you,
didn't
sir.
forget you. We got Agent 47. What's up? Thanks for being here. AVB says you look tired AF.
I've been up since 4:45, so
yeah, you probably are tired AF, for sure. We got KR Gordon 08. I made my second live this month. Damn, 24, 72-hour shifts. Well, we appreciate that you made it. So for sure. We got Paul G. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. He just want to make sure we heard him.
All right,
thanks for being here, Paul. We got underscore. Thanks for being here. Yo. And we got Matthew. Made it at the start for once. Well, we appreciate you all being here. We'll throw shout outs to some of the other folks as they get in here. Thanks for hanging out with us. So a lot of stuff going on. Let's talk about the first bit of news. I think that it wasn't the first bit of news. There was news, kind of trickling in all day, but probably the biggest piece of news was the trade, right? We had been kind of, waiting for that cornerback move that Gambo had kind of tweeted about, and that, people have been talking about it. We're going to trade for one, sign one. And lo and behold, we got a trade. It was a conditional 7th round pick that could become a 6th round pick based on playing time for former 2nd round pick Trayvon Mullen to the Arizona Cardinals from the Raiders, a former teammate of Isaiah Simmons. So, Aarron, we haven't talked to you in a while. What think you? What make you of this trade?
I was underwhelmed by it. When they were going to trade for a corner, this is the last person I would have guessed. And I haven't really kept tabs on him in quite some time. So I don't know if he's performed well or if he's underwhelmed or what, but I don't know. I guess I think I was just kind of expecting something a little bit more top of mind in terms of awareness of who the player actually is. So I have mixed feelings. I guess I got to go watch the film or look up some stats, but I've been so busy I haven't had a chance to do that. So I'm 50-50 on it right now.
Yeah. Kyler,
It's not like the price is bad or anything. That's just I don't know who he is.
I mean, yeah, the price is fine, right? I mean, 7th round pick, 6th round pick. I mean, those are throwaway picks in terms of you give them away in trades or use them for guys that may not make the roster. So, and they've got compensatory picks. So, I think your question is more the player, right? So, yeah, Kyler, what was your thought?
It wasn't a name that was really on my radar either. Definitely not one that I would have guessed. I mean, the compensation is fine. You know, if a 7th round pick can be a cornerback too, then that's like a Kime time trade, if there ever was one. I do know Mullen has played okay in the snaps that he's had. He had some injury problems last year. I think he only played in 5 games last year. He had
another injury problem.
Some foot issues. So there is that. But if he's even a serviceable number 2 that allows Byron Murphy to shine in his preferred role in the slot, I mean, that's good. It's just not. It's like Aarron said, it is a little underwhelming.
Yeah.
Kind of being sold that this big cornerback trade's coming. It's definitely not a name as far as name brand recognition goes. If it works out to where he's fine and serviceable, then that's a wonderful compensation for it. But I do think people were expecting a bigger name. There's just a gap between what you can expect to get reasonably from here, the 7th round, like you're kind of taking flyers on some guys that you think can work, versus blockbuster multiple 1st round picks, because teams aren't going to give up good cornerbacks. They're too valuable.
Yeah, and I think, and just to Ty saying, I don't know who you're saying is tripping. I hope you're not talking about us. No one's tripping here. No one says he's not worth a 7th round pick. Let's start with that. No one said the price was too high.
It's just the player.
The question is, and this is a lot of Cardinals fans were expecting someone more high end, right?
Yes.
But I think Kyler's making the point that I did a video on, kind of projecting who they might trade for, and Mullen wasn't on my radar. So, but the deal is, like, no one is for the most part going to trade like a number 1 or 2 cornerback unless it's a rebuilding team and it's an aging veteran near the end of their contract or injury history. You're not getting a legit 1 or 2. You're getting you're getting someone like Mullen, who's at the end of his rookie deal, has been decent. His PFF grades have kind of been in the 60s ish. So that's a starter, but not a high end starter, right?
Yeah, he's not better than Byron Murphy, my friend. I'm sorry. You're going to have to go back to the film on that.
But you're not getting that guy. You're not getting an elite cornerback at this point. Anyone who has that guy is planning to have him start. You're getting a guy who was on the bubble, right?
Yeah, to your point, even Patrick Peterson getting up there in age a few years ago, when there were their supposed offers from Philly and a couple other teams, they were offering 1st round picks for an aging Patrick Peterson. It's just not a position that you can get away without trading just like a king's bounty to get a top end guy. Like the price of a Jalen Ramsey-esque cornerback would be at least 3 1st round picks and players. Like they're almost to the point of quarterback trades, right? Because the amount of teams that don't have a full roster of starting caliber cornerbacks is more than just the Arizona Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
Probably half the teams in the league don't have a full 4 cornerbacks who are starter level NFL corners. It's just a tough position to get top to bottom.
And timing matters too, because like if you're going to make that kind of blockbuster trade as a team, you're not making it right now when you're getting ready. Like the team that is willing to trade away that guy for that, if you make them a huge offer, they want to make that trade earlier so they have time to figure out who's going to play, how they're going to fill that role, right? So this is the kind of trade you were looking at, and maybe, another guy that, that was mentioned, I know I mentioned mine and I saw in here, was maybe Greedy Williams.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they're going to make another trade. I think if they add another cornerback, it's going to be a veteran, someone like Robert Alford or someone who's on the, kind of not on a roster right now. So I think this is probably, who knows? They could prove me wrong, but I think this was the only trade we were getting.
Yeah.
So yeah, let me say hey to some of the folks who popped in here since we got started. Real quick, and I'll answer Eric Ramos. How did Ben Neiman? I think you meant make it. Ben Neiman made it because he's a special teams ace. If you look at his PFF grades on special teams, they're in the 80s and 90s. As a linebacker, he is a backup who's nothing special, but he made it on special teams. That's really why he made it. Let's see who else we got. Grandizer, the one, the only, the legend. You may follow Giacomo the Cardinal Rule on Twitter. You may follow Kyler Burd. Contribute not anymore, right? We'll have to change that, right? But he is the editor-in-chief of AZ Sports Underground, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron Van Buren, follow him on Twitter, but that's also kind of no longer, you're not really working with the Racing Zone anymore either, right? Is that correct?
I'm kind of like emergency standby sort of writer, but
okay,
my new job's so busy, so yeah, I stepped down as a stat expert.
He's very important these days, so he's got other things, mover and shaker. So, but myself and Kyler, you can find on AZ Sports Underground, where we've got some great content, all kinds of content. And there's an article that just went up. Robert Moore wrote about the trade that talks about how Trayvon Mullen. He briefly mentions how Trayvon Mullen with the Raiders, he thinks, played a little more zone and might be a better fit with the Cardinals. So maybe there's a chance he fits in. And then, underscore saying chemistry goes a long way. Maybe, him and Simmons used to playing together in that defensive, backfield. Maybe, that might make it different. So anyway, I want to say, hey, Bub, saying, yeah, those veterans you're going to get, like Patrick Peterson, he was mentioning that as an example. Easy No Stories, thanks for dropping in here. Should have traded both Peterson and Chandler a year early. Don't completely disagree with the Peterson one, at least.
Peterson, yeah, we could have gotten some good picks out of that.
Yeah. Then we got Mr. Mono. All the more reason to draft a cornerback early next year. Yeah, they need to do that, don't they?
Hugo West.
So yeah, so anyway, we got a bunch of folks in here. Thanks for hanging out with us. And yeah, please do smash that like button. 10 more likes to 20. We got 42 folks in here, so why not get us 42 likes, right? Please do. We appreciate you all hanging out with us. And then yeah, this was the other news. Simmons mentioned on Twitter that he's going to be having the green dot. I think that's great.
Yeah.
He's smart. He's going to be all over the place to be on the field, right? So did anyone have anything else they want to say about this? For my bottom line is, I think I like the trade overall. I think it's not a true number one cornerback, but it's a guy with upside. It's the kind of guy you're going to get. If they can bring in another veteran, then I'll feel much better about it, right?
Yeah.
The compensation fits the player. If you're getting traded for that low, it kind of says a lot.
Yeah, well, heck, if he ends up, but it's upside, right? So the compensation could end up being a bargain depending. Now they'll have to extend him if he pans out. But if you tell me let's say he starts all season, it becomes a 6th round pick, and you tell me we got a solid starting cornerback this year for a 6th round pick, I'll take that, even if it's a 1-year rental. Real quick, we'll get to this. You ask him about Aaron Brewer getting cut. We'll come to that because we're going to talk about the cuts in just a minute. The 53 roster. Hey, B-Train B, thanks for being here. But I will answer that question, Ty, in a little bit about that, or we all will. We'll talk about that. But, well, yeah, I don't think it's something to stress out about just yet, but we'll talk about that.
I know. It's just I haven't seen cuts yet.
Right? So, okay. So before we get in, so let's start with there were some players that were put on either injured reserve, waived injured, or had injury settlements. That include guard Marquise Hayes, safety Tay Daly, offensive lineman Greg Long, offensive lineman Josh Miles, offensive lineman Justin Murray, tight end Chris Pierce Jr., defensive line Christian Ringo. Just some notes on this. Marquise Hayes was the only one that was put on the injured reserve, and that does end his season. Based on the rules of IR, if you're placed on IR before the waiver period ends, that's season ending. So unfortunately, guard Marquise Hayes, who I was really excited about, is on the IR for the rest of the season. All the rest of these are players who were like waived, injured, or injury settlements. So they're all players that could be brought back on practice squad or even active roster later. Anything that you want to point out on this? Any that either of you gentlemen want to comment on this before we move on to the actual cuts?
I don't think so.
Okay, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, Marquise Hayes, the last thing that I remember hearing was like a tweaked knee. So it going from that to season-ending injured reserve is interesting. Yeah. We didn't really get the full story on that injury, obviously. And then the Justin Murray thing sort of just lines up with what everyone was thinking, why we went after and traded for Cody Ford. That makes sense. Justin Murray is going to be out, so had to bring in Cody Ford. And that's probably an upgrade, but Justin Murray has been really serviceable. So yeah, that is a big depth loss on the O-line.
Yeah, for sure. And real quick, free matter for the bond. Thanks for being here. Surprised Josh Miles is cut. And this again, these were waived injury. So I think there was a minor injury. Justin Murray, a bit surprising. He's been with them for a while. They like him. He can play guard and tackle, right? Mm-hmm. The difference between waived and cut, that's a good question. I'm not sure. It's an injury designation. I don't know. Aarron, do you know the difference?
It's kind of how, if it's anything like the regular, they just it's a way that they can break their contract through because they got hurt. And then even waiving them, they typically go on a waiver wire and they can still be claimed by another team. Mm-hmm. And so if a team wanted to use their waiver, then they would go back to the bottom of the order and it just repeats from that point.
And if anyone, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. My best understanding of the only real difference here has to do with contract and salary. This is the main difference between this being waived normally. I could be wrong, but real quick, let me say to some of the other folks that jumped here, Race Hammer, Neiman Vallejo, okay. Wooten, yeah, that I know a lot of people were frustrated about that. Let's see, who else? Jalen Blair, thanks for dropping in here. This feels like a stash player thing with Hayes. How does tweak knee equal? Yeah, and that was my thought too, because man, that he's just a minor knee thing, and all of a sudden, maybe they figured he wasn't going to be playing, he wasn't going to be suiting up. Yeah, just take their time, right? So awesome. Yeah, I don't know. Jordan P dropped in. Thanks for being here. I've been watching Mullen tape. Was really good last year. INT the couple games he played, except an illegal contact week 2. Played left cornerback, right cornerback. Really good and press. Could be a major steal. So here's hoping, right? So okay, so then we'll get on to these are the players that were waived. Let me talk about. Let me just real quick. The Aaron Brewer thing was kind of mentioned earlier, and that was a surprise to a lot of people. And this will be an opportunity for me to just kind of mention something with the rules here. So when you waive players, a couple things. One, and I think Brian Elwan mentioned this: if they have more than 3+ years or 4 years or more vet, they don't go to the waiver wire. They can be signed instantly. It's within, I guess it's less than 4 years, right? Most of these are players, though, would be less than 4 years. But there's an IR or injury implication here that I mentioned earlier, that if you have a player that's injured and you want to put them in the IR, but you don't want them to be gone for the full season, you want to be able to bring them back within 4 games as the minimum. That player has to be on your active roster through the waiver period, which ends tomorrow. So what I suspect is that, for example, there are some of the players on the active roster who might be banged up, who they might this week put on the IR after the waiver period ends, and then re-sign some of these guys. Aaron Brewer, to me, it just seems like a gentleman's agreement. Like, hey, wink, wink, we're going to waive you so that we can get some of these guys through the IR. And then once it's done, we'll bring you back, because they're either going to bring him back or another special long snapper. I don't know why they'd go with someone else, right? Yeah. So I think the Aarron Brewer thing's a little surprising, but maybe not shocking, because I think it's just, I think that's all it is. I think he'll be back with us like later this week. So with that said, do you want to? There's two questions I want to ask with this list. One, who were the biggest surprises to you guys, and then after we get through that, let's talk about who we think might be practice squad candidates from this list. So, Kyle, why don't you get us started with who were the biggest surprises for you here?
I mean, the clear number one surprise, because he has turned into a little bit of a fan favorite through the preseason, was Chandler Wooten. He got cut, and his news kind of came out a little bit earlier than a lot of the big news dump that we got later this afternoon. But that's surprising. He did have a really good preseason. Other big surprises, Manny Jones also had a pretty good performance too. And it's kind of surprising to see Jace Whitaker cut, just because it feels like he's like the Chris Banjo type player who's just like around. Charles Washington, Chris Banjo. He's just always there. Cornerback gets injured. Who is it that's coming back? Jace Whitaker. So it is weird to see him gone. And then Trace McSorley. I did think that they were going to go into the season with 3 quarterbacks. Whether that's the right thing to do or not, I'm not entirely sure. But I was a little surprised to see them cut Trace McSorley, because he's not going to survive waivers. He's not going to be someone that's going to be that back there after going through waivers to go on the practice squad.
Aarron, what surprised you on this list?
Well, I definitely agree on McSorley. There goes my bold prediction from a couple weeks ago. But I thought he did really well, and it was just ironic because out of nowhere I found out the Jets cut Chris Streveler, and I'm like, how is he even still in the league? We found out in 2020 sometimes you're only as good as your third string quarterback, and I'm not saying we're going to be there, but I would have liked to have seen him. I thought he did well. And the other one that surprised me, which probably won't be a surprise to you guys, is I was a big Devon Kennard truther. He was our run stopping linebacker, and now who's going to make tackles? Are we really going to ask Zaven Collins to make some tackles? I mean, yes, I know you want to see him play, and I did too, so I do have to eat that part of what I've said. But I just thought for a position that's so young, to get rid of someone who's so experienced was just a little ridiculous. And then also slightly disappointed that Victor Bolden Jr. didn't get a bigger shot.
Yeah. Kennard surprised me as well. I mean, I think that surprised a lot of people, but there was in the back of my head, this part of me that wondered, with the numbers game, would they let him go? And I have to wonder if they kept him around as that veteran mentor and just kind of this far into, the camp to kind of work with the guys. I don't know. It's also possible he's a guy they could bring back on the practice squad if he doesn't sign somewhere else. Because you can keep up to 6 veterans there, and we'll talk about it a little bit. The quarterback thing's interesting because up until very recently, I was of the mind that they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks because, in the era of COVID, when you just have to have extra quarterbacks, right? We all remember the dumpster fire that was a Denver Broncos game where they started a practice squad receiver who played quarterback some in college, right?
Yeah.
But when I did my video kind of projecting the roster, I went with 2 quarterbacks because, and Kyle, this is where I'm going to disagree with you just a little bit. Obviously, these are just opinions, but I think McSorley might get through waivers. When you look at the kinds of quarterbacks like Kellen Mond, who's getting cut, and guys like that, and Kellen Mond, he's a recent 3rd-round pick. Now he sunk up the place. That's why I got cut. But there's a lot of quarterbacks going to be floating around there. So I just looked at it and I thought, if the Cardinals look at Jarrett and Guarantano, right, who's the other quarterback who was also cut, and someone asked about that in the chat. So, yeah, they both got cut. I have to wonder if the Cardinals are looking at it and say, you know what? even if McSorley gets claimed, Guarantano was not that far off in terms of performance. If we can get one of these two guys on our practice squad, we're good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, but I think they might be able to get both. So we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong and Trace McSorley does get picked up, but I was less surprised, even though early on I thought that. Obviously, I was a Chandler Wooten fan, disappointed to see he didn't make it, so that was a little surprising. Lucada was interesting because we had heard he had made it early in the day, and then he got cut.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe that was when that trade for Mullen came by. You know, if they had to clear up the spot. So
or maybe because he wanted pizza.
Right. So what was who do you think are some of the players that on here that you think are, if they don't get picked up on waivers, are the top practice squad candidates? Real quick, let me say hey to Deontay Singleton. Thanks for being here. Canada was the guy who missed time of tackles. Yeah, but he also really good on practice or on special teams. Robert Moore, who's just got an article up. Thanks for being here about the Trayvon Mullen trade. So check that out on azsportsunderground.com. Yeah, and he was cut, the quarterback. So, Aarron, when you look at this list, who do you think are some of the top practice squad candidates from this list of players that they waived?
I think Steven Anderson for sure. Max Williams is coming off an injury. Trey McBride had a little, sat out a week. And Zach Ertz is a veteran. And with that kind of frame, I think he's going to be on there, so I would like to see him there. And then I think John Trey Kirkland also had some, a few shining moments, so I could see him on there as well.
Mm-hmm.
But those are my top two because I don't see anybody else really coming back because I think, like Kyler said, or somebody said that McSorley was going to be picked up.
Okay. Kyler, I don't think he is. So we got a 32-cent bet on that, right, Kyler?
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
At least.
I think Chandler Wooten, if he makes it through waivers, is a great practice squad candidate. And I agree with Steven Anderson take too. I think you got to have a good tight end back there as well. And between John Trey Kirkland and Victor Bolden, they're both good practice squad wide receivers. Kirkland had a couple touchdowns, I think, in the preseason. He was catching them in the red zone, and Bolden does have that returnability. He has some of the it factor. I think he's just the suffering from being on a team that has a wealth of wide receiver talent right now. And there are teams that are just in crazy desperate need of wide receivers. So surviving waivers for him is probably a lot to ask for. I think he will be picked up by someone, but Manny Jones as well. I'd love to see him as a backup on the practice squad.
For sure. Real quick, let me just say a shout out to D'Lo. Thank you. He's late, but he loves the Mullen trade and came with a super chat. Thank you so much. Sincerely appreciate the support. One of the many wonderful members of our community. Definitely, this is the best. This is the best Cardinals community out there. We've got a great group of folks in the Discord who communicate throughout the week. So if you're not part of the Discord, join it. There's great conversations in there, and yeah, just definitely a great group. But of course, thank you, D'Lo. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think you named a lot of great players. Real quick, let me say hey to Trash Panda. Thanks for being here. We need better DBs. Well, that's a long-standing conversation, right? Who's going to be our long snapper? It's going to be Aaron Brewer because I think they're going to bring him back. Let me real quick. Gordon. I think I agree with Gordon here. Wooten, Woods, Lucado. Those are a couple of good names. Mm-hmm. So, couple things. Steven Anderson. Don't be surprised if he ends up actually on the active roster before week 1, if it's one of those things where if they don't feel like Max Williams is quite ready to go or they want to give him more time to get that knee healed, that when the waiver period clears and it's safe, they put Max Williams on the IR, can bring him back after 4 games, and Steven Anderson's on the active roster. Don't be surprised if that happens. I don't know for sure, but connecting the dots, that just makes sense. Yes, Brewer got cut. Brewer will be back. And don't be surprised. I mean, So people mentioned the 5 running backs, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, but one of those guys might go, Ward's a little banged up. But in terms of other guys that I expect to be back, I think Manny Jones on the practice squad makes a lot of sense. One of those quarterbacks should be on the practice squad. If not, it's going to be someone else. If Devin Kennard doesn't sign somewhere else, they'll probably bring him back in the practice squad if he's willing. They can have up to 6 veterans who have with no limit on their experience. I think Kirkland's a possibility. Lucada definitely. If he does not get picked up, they love his special teams. Sykovitz is going to have that exemption for international, so he'll be back. Wiggins I could see back because they like him as a gunner. He just has struggled at safety, but I think they want to bring him back and have him there. Chandler Wooden is obvious. And, I could see Antoine Woods, but Chandler Wooden obvious. And I think one of these offensive linemen, Danny Isadora has been around with them for a little bit of, for a while. So he might be back. I'm sorry?
So was Bachelia, or however you say it.
Yeah, the receiver, Andre Bachelia. So might see one of them. So there's a lot of names on here that could be back on the practice squad, right? So we'll see. Real quick, I want to say hey to Kalen Gordon. Thanks for being here. Had to switch computer, but I'm back. Okay, that's the other kid. Okay, Lord Dane, what's up? Thanks for hanging out with us. 73 wonderful people watching. Only 23 likes. Do only 23 of you like us? No, just but please do click like. So anyway, okay. Let's get on though to the people who actually made the roster, right? What are your thoughts? And I know Aarron, we got to get Aarron and Kyler kind of out of here probably in the next 10-15 minutes. Just FYI, I promised them to not keep them too late tonight. What are your thoughts when you look at the we'll go through a couple kind of groups at a time. So here's 3 of the position groups. Aarron, what are your thoughts when you look at who they've kept here?
And it's probably the elephant in the room, and I apologize if I take your thunder here, Kyler, but it's just like, why are we doing 5 running backs? What could they even possibly be used for? 4 would be okay because one was going to be a special teamer. But you got 5 running backs and 6 wide receivers. So what are you going to try to do with this? I mean, I'm happy that Keontae Ingram made it as a rookie. It's not easy, but and I know from the interview, Jonathan Ward's a cool guy, but what does he bring to the offense? Like, I'm really confused here. This is John Gruden level of hoarding.
Kyle, do you want to respond to that?
I'm a little bit confused by the 5 running backs, but I also think having those 5, it's not going to be that way week 1, definitely. We're going to be looking at everyone that was waived by other teams, going to be looking at still who's left in free agency to add. So when we make these additions to the team, someone has to go. I would imagine it's someone in that running back room is one of the top candidates to be one of the first cuts when we have to make room for another person. So who that is, I don't know if it's Jonathan Ward going on an IR situation to stash him for the next year while we add someone else. That's definitely possible. But we also have a situation of 6 wide receivers over here that's not including DeAndre Hopkins. Obviously, he's out the first 6 weeks. So who of those 6 are going to go away when D-Hop comes back?
That makes Isabella a prime trade deadline target.
Yeah, exactly.
See, it's depth, right? But
Yeah,
Jonathan Ward, 2 carries every 6 months and a catch of the year once a year too. Don't forget that. But I think Jalen's probably. I think Ward is a guy who I might see on the IR because he's been banged up. He was working on the sidelines but not really practicing today. I think any one of these running backs they cut would have a good chance of getting claimed.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, potentially all of them. Ward is a special team stud, and he's been effective when they've used him. They just haven't used him a lot, but he looked really good in preseason. So I suspect Ward's going to be on that IR. Yes, eventually they got to bring him off of that, but you make that you cross that bridge when you get there because people get banged up. like the laws of probability tell you when it's time to bring Jonathan Ward back, one of these guys is going to be banged up, right? So you kind of deal with that when you get there. The quarterback we talked about earlier, and then Andy Isabella. In fact, let me bring this up real quick since we're talking about this tweet. John Gambadoro, shared this tweet. Andy Isabella did make the Cardinals 53-man roster, but from what I'm hearing, he wanted to be traded. Wants a fresh start and snaps over being a depth guy that may not play. What do you all think about that?
Ship him out. Anyway, we've been saying that for years. I mean, I don't know, Green Bay, Baltimore, I don't know, wherever they need him.
Yeah. I think that the Aarron had a good point that he would be a prime mid-season trade. As it gets closer to Hopkins coming back, you got to make a spot on the roster anyway. So going into week 5, week 6, and you're seeing which teams are just like in desperate need of a wide receiver, and you take what they're going to give you in that state of desperation. So you might even bump his price up a little bit if you go into the season, and then you have a team like the Bears who basically have no wide receivers right now. And then you offer them Andy Isabella, and he did play really well in the preseason. He does have that speed that you can't teach. So you might be able to actually get something out of him versus what I thought a couple months ago, which was that he was just going to be a straight wave, a cut from this team. So I don't think that they're going to trade him before the season starts.
Another thing. Did Antoine Wesley ever come back from his groin injury?
So he's a little banged up too. So that's another guy who you might see go on IR, right?
I did see that he was practicing today.
Okay.
So maybe he'll be okay in time for the season.
Yeah. I think I've been in the camp that I'd like to see Andy get another chance somewhere else. And as much as I'd like to keep him, and I think there's some wisdom to keeping him through those 6 weeks because we might need him. But I don't know. I just feel like maybe go ahead and trade him somewhere. Someplace where he can just start right away. Atlanta, Packers, or Bears. There's other names out there.
Washington.
Who knows, right? I think he deserves. It's not, I don't know. I feel bad for the guy. Like to see him get that chance.
If he doesn't want to be here, just trade him away.
Yeah. So, give him a chance to play. So, they'll have to find someone, but at some point they're going to need that, they're going to need to clear a spot anyway. Right. So when Hopkins comes back, I want to get us going through here because I want to respect y'all's time. Tight ends and offensive linemen. Aarron, any thoughts on who they kept here? Anything you want to point out?
I mean, I think it makes sense. I mean, the Cardinals are really buying into, I played with him in college.
Yeah.
And, I guess they saw Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase take off, and they're like, that's got to work. And so, I mean, we'll see how this experiment goes. I mean, I don't have anything against Cody Ford. I just thought it was really random. I think it's a good line, and you got a solid depth there for the 2 deep. So I like it.
Yeah, Kyler, what do you think?
I mean, the offensive line has a potential to be good. Like not top 10 probably, but top half perhaps. If that's a healthy line and you can keep that same starting lineup of the starting 5 and not have horrible season-ending injuries go on, then I think that's an actually pretty decent line. Tight ends, nothing to say about that. All 3 of them are really good. I mean, Grant, we haven't seen Trey McBride yet, but he was drafted high, played really well in college. But Zach Ertz and Max Williams are excellent. So, not much to say here. I think these are all like winners.
I feel better about these 2 position groups than maybe I've ever felt as a Cardinals fan, especially tight end, the best tight ends group we've ever had. An offensive line, like I know there's like some people aren't, really high on all these players. Like, not everyone loves Humphreys, but like this offensive line, the starting 5 are all NFL offensive lineman, legit
Yeah.
NFL offensive lineman. Hudson's, great at his position. Maybe the rest are C plus B, but they're all legit. But then your backups like Josh Jones, lo and behold, you played him tackle in the preseason, and look, he's the best, like one of the best tackles in the preseason. Again, they're all backups that are playing the preseason. But like he was one of the best offensive tackles in the preseason because he was played at his natural position, right? Feel really good about him as our swing tackle and potentially future right tackle next year, perhaps. And then Cody Ford, he hasn't lived up to expectations, but like if he's your primary backup at guard with all that starting experience and talent, I'll take that, right? So Aarron, you want to jump in there?
I would just want to say about Cody Ford, no matter what happens with him, he's not Max Garcia.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. And he does excuse me. I put him a little bit in that Will Hernandez camp where he's a high draft pick who didn't pan out. And with the right coaching, there's potential there. We'll see. It has to happen, but that potential, Lord Dane saying that, Young has that potential. So I feel really good about this depth, so yeah. Real quick, Lisa, thanks for dropping in. Let's play Andy Isabella more and keep him. He has a speed, played great in preseason. The tough part is with Andy, this is last year on his rookie deal. I don't think he would sign to come back. I think he wants to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
As much as I love that, yeah. So let's go on to the next position group. Interior defensive line, outside linebackers. What do you think, Mr. Van Buren?
I mean, I like that Rashad Lawrence is still there. I know a lot of people were, trying to get him to do more, want him to do more. I'm still a little weary on, having Sanders and Thomas, as a part of a rotation, just so early. And maybe it's because I was moving pretty much the last month and didn't get as much of a good look as you guys probably did. But I don't see those guys as outside linebackers. I still see them as DNs. I mean, the edge rusher thing is such a gray area, but we'll see what happens. I'm okay with it, both of you. So,
Kyler, what do you think?
I'm still a little bit wary of the interior defensive line. Obviously, J.J. Watt, when he's healthy, is one of the best to ever play the game, so can't really be concerned about that. And Zach Allen, he has gotten better every year. He does seem to have this sort of mentor-mentee relationship with J.J. Watt right now, which can only help learning from someone like that. But Rashard Lawrence and Michael Dogbe and Fotu are still question marks to me. I want Rashard Lawrence to be really good, and he has the ability to, I think, but with how much of a weakness that position was last year and to have no upgrades, not even any changes really at this position group is weird. It's kind of concerning when it was such an issue. And outside linebacker is just, there's not much you can say about it because we don't know anything about it yet. The only true, proven person in this group is Marcus Golden. And he's good. And it's been great when he's been a number 2 when Chandler Jones is taking a double team on the other side. We have not seen him as the number 1. And Dennis Gardeck had, a really good 93 snaps in 2020, but that's really like the sample size that we have to go on. And the rest are just completely unknown young guys. DeMcKay looked great, but again, preseason. And Myjai Sanders and Cameron Thomas, they could both turn out great, or they could not. We don't have any clue. And I kind of agree with Aarron that Cam Thomas to me still seems more like a DN than an outside linebacker. Myjai Sanders I can get there, but Thomas is a little weird, and it makes me afraid that we're doing the standard Cardinals thing, especially on defensive, trying to play people out of their natural positions, and that's never worked well for us ever. We've never tried it, and it's worked out well.
I'm not as worried about the outside linebackers as some people are. I know Golden's the only kind of really proven player there. I liked what I saw of Dimikaji. Dennis Gardeck has flashed at points. I like the rookies. I just believe that Vance Joseph is going to get production out of that group somehow. Whoever's up to the task is going to be playing. If I just suspect or kind of project, I think Dimikaji is going to start on the early downs. I think he seems like a little more stout in terms of his build for run. And I think they're going to rotate on passing down Sanders and Gardeck, and then Thomas might move him around a little bit, get him in there. Vance Joseph can scheme that up. The interior defensive line, I love Lawrence. I've talked about that before as a run stopper. The health is a concern. JJ Watt, can he stay healthy? You do worry a little bit about the depth right there. Lecky Fotu, they kept him because they like the traits, but he hasn't shown anything yet. Ledbetter looked good in the preseason, but it's preseason, right? So, as far as Golden holding in, I don't think I know people have said this, and maybe I'm wrong. I really don't think he is. I know people are kind of basing that one tweet. We'll see. I just don't think he is. I think that's just a lot of kind of people speculating, but let's see if I'm wrong, right? Next up, we have the inside linebackers. I think this will be Aaron's last slide with us. He's got to get out of here. Inside linebackers and cornerbacks. Aaron, what are your thoughts on that?
I am inches away from hitting the panic button at cornerback.
Okay.
Byron Murphy is the only guy I feel safe with. I mean, if Antonio Hamilton, usurped Marco Wilson, how is he? That's not an order, is it? It's just there.
No, that's me just putting them roughly in the order. That's probably the order I think they are in. Although
my power just went out.
Oh.
So I gotta go figure that out.
Okay, Aaron, thanks for hanging out with us. Sorry your power went out. We'll talk to you later.
Good luck.
See you guys. Thank you. Bye.
All right, Kyler. So Aaron's worried about the cornerbacks. What are your thoughts?
Out of all the slides so far, this is kind of the sketchiest to me. Mm-hmm. Overall, cornerback is still a question mark, obviously. Byron Murphy has a lot of talent, and I just hope and pray that he's going to be allowed to play in the position that he's comfortable with and be a really good slot cornerback, because that's a super valuable position. Trayvon Mullen, if he can be one of the outside cornerbacks, and Marco Wilson, if Antonio Hamilton is healthy right now, it's probably Antonio Hamilton and Trayvon Mullen on either side of the ghost.
The ghost of Marco Wilson got Aaron Van Buren, right?
Like, I would be very disappointed if Marco Wilson turns out to be a depth piece in the cornerback room, but that might be where we're trending. I would still like some type of experienced vet in that room, whether it's Robert Alford. He wouldn't even have to play all the time necessarily if you have a young guy like Trayvon Mullen. And there are a lot of other options out there that we've talked about ad nauseum. And at linebacker, I know that you mentioned Ben Neiman is great on special teams, and that's probably how he's earning his keep. But I think he's also probably one of those, if we make a move, he's one of the first guys to go type of situations, because we already have Zeke Turner in that special team ace linebacker role. Like he comes in when you're absolutely desperate in games, but as far as special teams go, Zeke Turner's one of the best that we've had in the last few years. Isaiah Simmons, I think this is his breakout year. I think he's just gonna explode in the best possible way, and we saw all the stuff about him getting the green dot for week 1. I don't know if the green dot's something that's going to be spread around this year, because that's been something that's been talked about. But Isaiah Simmons seems like he's taken all the steps necessary to become like a true NFL star, and I'd like to see that. Zayvon Collins, he just has to be better. Like, there's not an option. He has to be better, or he doesn't belong on this team anymore. And that was a wasted draft pick, like a lot of people have been saying.
Yeah. Like with the cornerback room, if I knew all 5 of those guys are healthy, I'm not going to panic. It's more or less last year. It's instead of Robert Alford, we have Trayvon Mullen, right? It's and then we add Christian Matthew, I guess. Like that's kind of the same cornerback room, but swap out.
Yeah.
If one of those, if Antonio Hamilton's banged up, a little more sketchy. Okay, Marco Wilson starting. He started last year. Maybe I'm a little more okay. I'd be a lot more comfortable if there was another veteran, someone like Alford or Joe Hayden. But I'm a lot less worried than I was before they made the trade. That's for sure, right?
Yeah.
Linebacker, yeah, there's so much depending on our star backer, right? Isaiah Simmons. If he ends up taking a step forward and if him calling the plays or having the green dot frees Zaven Collins up to just not have to think but play, that could be there could be a cascading effect, right? Where both of them, I don't know, we'll see. But there's some concerns there, right? They need those young linebackers to take a step forward, right? We'll see though, right? They're doing a youth movement on defense, right? Paul's saying he's going to panic because he pass rush too. That's part of the problem. Yeah, I mean, I feel okay about the pass rush. I know it's relying on all the young players. Maybe I'm being too naive, but it's a youth movement there. But it's we criticize them for not playing their youngsters. Here they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's the whole team is sort of taking a shift a little bit to the younger side. We've been one of the older teams for a while now. And now who's the oldest on defense? JJ Watt?
Yeah.
Like by a pretty decent margin, he's the oldest on this defense. And we went from Patrick Pearson, Chandler Jones to, I mean, a lot of unknowns, but a lot of really young, very trying to draft the athletic, freakish type players like Simmons. And that really probably is the wave of the future. So trying to get ahead of that's a smart idea. It's just we don't know enough about these players yet. We haven't seen them.
Yeah. Real quick, couple questions. Is Mullen fully healthy and ready? I haven't heard anything about him not being ready to go. I can't imagine they would have traded for him. I tried looking up for injuries, and I didn't see anything. I don't know if you've seen anything on that.
Mm-mm.
I think he should be good to go. Again, they needed someone to start to play, right? Randtrack saying I would have gone Wooden over Neiman. Hey, in my predictions, I did. So yeah. I hear you, right? Facundo Morsi, do you think we're going to play 3 cornerbacks? They always go with a combination of that, right? They'll play a lot of slot corner and kind of the nickel. So we'll see 3 cornerbacks on the field a lot. Though we will see Simmons sometimes sliding into that role, right? And then Easy saying don't mind getting younger on defense. Yeah, it's gonna. Yeah, we always play the nickel. We play that a lot. It's gonna be there's gonna be some growing pains, but like in the NFL, there are a lot of teams that win a lot of games with a really good offense and a middle of the pack defense. And I know things went sideways at the end of the season, but this offense is built to be really good. Like, the receiving core, even with Hopkins out, it's still a deep receiving core. The run, so I think that's the game plan is have a really good offense. Take a little bit of get banged up a little bit on defense early on, take your bump, take your lumps, get those players up to speed. And hopefully by the playoff time, that defense has enough experience, right?
Yeah, it seems like we're going for a little bit of a Chiefs movement. You get a super fast offense, and you only need a middle of the pack defense because the Chiefs' defense the last few years has not been anything fantastic, really anything to write home about. They've had Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark and not much else.
Yeah.
And they won a Super Bowl, and they went to another Super Bowl right after. So they've shown the way to you can kill them with speed and then do just enough to stop them, and you win a ton of games, and you can win Super Bowls that way.
Right. And as Cadillac says here, this defense is even average. The Cards win a lot of games, right?
Oh yeah.
So I know I get we want to have as good a team as possible, but you also you have to kind of balance that roster building. So that I'm willing to take that kind of chance if that makes sense. Jalen saying, I think the defense will be solid. It'll be at least middle of the pack. We gone to have a Wink Martindale, Baltimore Ravens type defense. Those defenses never had big name pass rushers, but blitz a lot. I've said for a long time that I love the kind of the drafting edge rushers in the middle rounds and develop them. And boy, that looks like that's what they're doing, right? So, do I think we'll add Wooten back? I think he's going to be on the practice squad if he doesn't get picked up anywhere else. So safeties and special teams. What are your thoughts here, Kyler?
Safeties is just a great room. It does dip off. There's quite a large gap between your starting safeties and your backup safeties, but Charles Washington has stepped in time after time with injuries, and he's been serviceable, not fantastic. You do hate when you have to see him on the field just because that means Buda or Jalen got hurt. Deontay Thompson looked not good in the preseason, and maybe he was phoning it in because he knew it's the preseason, and he had a fairly safe roster spot, I would say. He's been around for a while, and it's just a good room already, but with safeties are fine. I don't know how many times we've said on this stream that it's probably the best safety duo in the NFL, at least in the top 3.
Right.
And then special teams, Andy Lee, solid old pro, getting older and is punting a little bit less every year, but no reason to move on yet if he's still wanting to play. But this probably seems like it's his last year, maybe. And Matt Prater, I don't know whether to be concerned about him or not, because the preseason was pretty sketchy. And again, the same thing with Deontay Thompson. Maybe he just knows it's the preseason and it just does not matter if he goes out and shanks a kick, so he didn't try. But he doesn't strike me as that type of professional that would do that. I think he seems like the type of guy who would have a little bit more respect for his craft. So missing extra points is kind of concerning.
I was a little worried about that. Jalen's saying, I think this is a good possibility because Washington's a little banged up. He thinks Washington goes on the IR tomorrow. I think there's a good chance that could happen. A familiar face, Tony Jefferson, got cut. So do we bring him back? I was worried about the safeties in preseason. You mentioned Deontay Thompson looked bad in the preseason. No one except Tay Daly, who got injured, looked good in the preseason. Now they didn't play their starters, obviously. So I'm a little worried. Thompson will probably be that number one safety off the bench for them. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in another safety, a veteran. There's other names out there besides just Jefferson. And then Prater scared me a little bit, but you're gonna go with these two guys, right? It's gonna be ride or die with these two guys. So the starting safeties are great. Beyond that, you're a little worried, but Any other thoughts on the roster? That's kind of we've gone through all the position groups. Big picture thoughts on the roster, Kyler.
Big picture, it's probably the most confident top to bottom on paper that I've seen the Arizona Cardinals offense since 2015, at least, maybe before then. And defense, there's just so much unknowns at the linebacker position that's sort of and cornerback. I would not mind adding a couple more pieces there to see what will happen. But like we said, if it's an average defense, we're gonna win games. I don't see a way this year for this to be a fabulous defense. I just don't think there are enough pieces, period. Unless the two rookie outside linebackers just go crazy, but we can't count on that. And it kind of takes them time to develop. So if it works out and in the future we develop into a great defense, awesome. But I think it's good enough to hold on to wins. I don't think it's a defense that's going to win you games.
Yeah. Couple quick comments I want to just kind of highlight. This is an interesting thought. If they could bring in a hybrid safety / slot corner, somebody can play a little bit of both, that wouldn't be bad, right? George will probably be the starting kick returner, right? And maybe have an impact more than that. Liked what we saw out of him. This is an interesting question. Well, real quick, Ronnie Moore, I don't think he's going to be returning kicks. I think it'll be George.
Yeah.
This is a question, can't we say this roster is better than last year? That's a big question.
I don't know.
See, that's tough. The cop-out answer is it's different.
Yeah.
It's better on offense, I think. The offensive line is better. I think the weapons are better. Receiving, the running back depth. I mean, Chase Edmonds is a loss, but I like our depth. But I think like the receiving depth and tight end, having Ertz from the beginning of the season, not just midway through. Like on offense, it's better. And on defense, it's maybe taken a step back, especially without Chandler Jones. Is the cornerback room that much worse? I don't know. We've traded Mullen for really, again, this is the same cornerback room as last year, except we have Mullen instead of Alford. So if I had to pick, I would say it's either comparable but shifted to be more offensive, or because offense matters more in this league and the importance of protecting your quarterback, and I think they've got a better offensive line, I'd say it's potentially better. Redbirds thinks it's better, right? Now, there's still going to be some moves made, right? So they could literally make a couple moves that make that a definite yes for me.
Yeah. And really, they're only a couple moves away from having a definite yes to it. Another free agent vet cornerback, and I'm probably going to change my answer to yes, this is a better team on paper than last year. Here's my cop-out answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think because offense has become the be-all, end-all of football now, you just have to score a lot of points to win games. It's the game that they play now. Because of that, and because our offense is better, and I might even say fairly significantly better, top to bottom than last year, then yes, the team is better. We put up a good number of points last year anyway on average, particularly in the first 10 weeks. If that team was putting up close to 30 points a week, this offense should do the same or better. And in a league where offense wins, I think it's a better team.
Yeah, and Simon also has another good point. The team's deeper. Like the front line, let's look at edge rusher real quick, and then I know we've got to get out of here. Edge rusher, it's the top end talent isn't better because they've lost Chandler Jones.
Yeah.
No way. But like your fifth edge rusher on this team is a 3rd round pick. If you assume that Gardeck, who's an undrafted player, is ahead of them at this point, or your 5th is Gardeck. Last year, your 5th was an undrafted free agent, right? Who isn't with the team anymore.
Yeah.
Right. It's like that at a number of positions where you have more drafted players before you're pulling a guy off the street who's undrafted on this roster than you did last year at positions. Yes. So yes, the frontline talent in some positions, like edge rusher, for example, is not as good, but the depth is better at that, right? Yeah, and, Chandler Jones had that one good game, right? That's an argument one could make. So I know we got a lot of folks hanging out here. There's a lot of questions, comments. Sorry we couldn't get to all of them. Had a lot of man, we were up to like 90 folks in here. We just really appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Sorry I can't get to all your questions, comments. I try to acknowledge everyone at least once. If I didn't get to, I apologize. But we got to get out of here. Kyler, any thoughts as we head out?
I'm excited that we have a clearer look at what the team is going to be like this year. Been waiting for it. I think we did a good job at keeping an article up to date on azsportsunderground.com, keeping track of the cuts, trying to give you a little bit of insight into what the team might be thinking. So if you've been one of the people that have checked that out over the past couple of days, we've gotten a lot of great traffic from that and really appreciative. Just appreciative for the site and the people that have read the content on there and the people that are writing there. A lot of you are in the comment section already. So really thankful to be doing that right now. And you can find both of us there, but that's where we are. And I'm excited to keep going and have a full season to produce a lot of good Cardinals content for you guys.
Yeah. And yeah, Kyler's a great writer. Check out his stuff. Definitely check out azsportsunderground.com. We're going to be writing stuff throughout the season. Not just Cardinals, other Arizona teams. Really excited about the site. So please, if you haven't checked it out, check it out. Kyler and I it's a labor of love. We put a lot of work into it. There's a lot of folks in the chat who've been with us here who are writers for us. And we're very proud of the work we've done there. And we think you'll enjoy it. Thank you all for being here. Yeah, and Jose, thank you. Jose mentioned get some rest. Yeah, I'm a little under the weather, so I'm gonna take some allergy meds and sleep. And Kyler's gonna rest and he's got work. Thank you all for hanging out with us. It's been a blast. We're looking forward to doing this every week through the season. And everyone, peace, be well. And I'm gonna throw up the thank you to our channel members who support the channel, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace.